Hi, welcome to Wednesday at 1 with Elle Wood. This week, I am very happy to introduce you to all Toby Beresford from Rise Global. Hi, Toby.
Hi, nice to see you.
And you, thank you so much for joining us live today in the estate agency group, Twitter and LinkedIn. As I explained to you earlier, it will also go on my YouTube, which is called Estate Agent Training after this. So feel free, if you're watching on replay, to hashtag replay in the comments or go find us on YouTube. So Toby, Rise Global, tell us a little bit about your story and how you ended up here. Where did you come from?
Where did I come from? So I've been working in digital media really kind of all my career. So this is an extension of that, if you like. I started off in the world of in the world of kind of the world of the web. So everything's been on. I've been working on the web really ever since. I spent some time working on an internet charity called MicroAid, which was distributed. This was in the early noughties. And then from there, I got involved in social apps with Facebook, doing the Facebook Developer Garage, and we did games and apps and games for PlayStation and people like that. And then from there, I got excited about gamification and the potential of that to motivate people and to change behavior. So I developed a package called rise.global, which is a software tool for telling stories that may help us to all change our behavior.
Amazing. And so that's your focus at the moment, is that right? Rise.global, yeah?
So certainly that's my I'm a bit of a portfolio worker, but this is one of my main hats.
I certainly am as well. I enjoy the variety it gives you. It's quite a fun way to work, isn't it? So tell us about what gamification means. It's not a word I've ever come across before.
Is it not? No. So good, that's interesting. So really, I think the main, where it comes from is the idea that if you're brought up on digital and you're brought up with games as kind of a normal, so whether that's playing a video game or even a board game, you have a certain level of expectation from any experience as to what you're going to get back. And the main thing is feedback, really. When you do something in a game, you get a piece of feedback which says whether you've done well or badly. And gamification is really just taking that expectation of getting good feedback and applying it to the rest of the stuff we do, like our workplaces or our communities or government or wherever, and actually giving people really good feedback that is as good as if they were playing a game.
That's so interesting. So it's really tapping into the psychology of why video games are so addictive and why they're so important to so many people. It's such a huge industry. I think a lot of people think it's just for children. I mean, Dara O'Brien says that in his stand-up comedy routine, that, you know, it's a multi-billion-dollar business. It's not really designed just for children, is it?
No, not really. I mean, it's bigger than say films, for example. So gaming is big in itself, and it's also interesting that as things like smartphones have become more prevalent, the profile of the average gamer, you'd be surprised, is no longer that idea of a sort of an 18-year-old boy in their room playing Fortnite. It's probably a 40-year-old mum playing Candy Crush. Is just as much the profile of a hardcore, almost what we used to call hardcore gamers. So I think the idea is that, I mean, Al Gore says games are the new normal, and I think that's just the reality of life. Is we enjoy games.
That's so great. So yeah, I've not heard that quote before. I love it. Oh, Chris Walker's here. He says, "Hello, lovely people." Hello, Chris. Thank you for joining us.
Chris looks like he's on the South Downs drinking champagne. That's the right place to be, isn't it? That's where we should be shooting.
It's the right place to be. Yeah. He's something for us to all aspire towards. Amazing. Okay, so tell us more about how gamification works within a business context, because I think for a lot of people that those two things are completely at odds with one another, because gaming is for relaxing and for, you know, chill out time, and business is a serious thing and is to be taken seriously. So how on earth does the Venn diagram work between those two?
How does it work? So yeah, I think in business we kind of can accept an experience that is less well designed, I suppose is the way of putting it, than playing a computer game. So, I mean, I'm not thinking back to my career, but there are times when you're just sitting in a room doing something and you're not really sure why you're doing it or how long you're going to be doing it for or who it's for, and you've just been given work and you just have to just get on with the work that you're given, and that can be very demotivating, particularly over time. And it's true whether you're somebody in the kind of the media business like me, or whether you're an estate agent. There are times when you just have to sort of get through the work, and in those situations, there are one of the reasons that people get demotivated and what gamers call what is falling out of this sense of flow, the sense that I'm doing the right amount of work that's just challenging enough that it's keeping me interested, but not so challenging that I'm demotivated. It's impossible. I'm in this sort of state of flow, and games are very good at getting people into that state of flow. So if you've ever played, for example, let's talk about Candy Crush. When you first play, it's quite easy, and then it gets a bit more difficult over time, but it keeps you motivated. And quite often when we design work for people, we don't necessarily think about it in the same way and say, well, how can I make sure that this work is always keeps the people who are working on it in that state of flow? It's engaging enough that it doesn't get them bored, but it's not so hard that they just think this is impossible. So I think where gamification can really help the world of work is in the way in which we design and structure the work that people are going to be doing. So to take an example, if you've so a real example, so for instance, if you've got so if I've in one of my another different hat actually, but I have sort of junior sales reps who are just starting out in their selling career, and for them they need feedback. They need to know, has all the actions that they've done, are they hitting that kind of target? Have they got a sense of this is a sort of, I'm doing the right thing? Am I on track? And so gamification can really help in those sort of situations by kind of just providing simple quantitative feedback that lets people know that they're doing the right thing and gives a sense of sort of, oh, I did better today than yesterday. And then they're not playing a game. They're still doing work, but they're getting a much better feedback on the work that they are doing.
I love that. Chris Jones says, hi guys. So just wanted to drop in and say hi back. Thanks for joining us, Chris. I think that's absolutely fascinating. I think it's a really great way of explaining everything. I do a lot of estate agent training, and oftentimes when I do the mystery shop as a starting point, you can tell that the people on the other end of the phone or email, whatever, they don't really know what good looks like, because very few people, I think, set out to do bad work. Very few people go to work every day and think, I'm going to make a mess of this. I want to let my customers down. But a lot of the time, they're not receiving any feedback. They haven't been given a yardstick of what good looks like. So then actually, they don't really know where they measure up. So to have those constant, regular checkpoints, that's just, we used to do that in our morning meetings, but I think there are an amazing number of businesses that don't have that integrated as part of their daily plan.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example, isn't it? With your morning meetings. That's a fantastic way of giving feedback. And what I found is that a good managing, if you're managing a team or you're a colleague of a team, you don't have to be the manager, you just have to be in a team, is that that process of giving regular feedback is a good habit to be in, isn't it? And if you're not, what we find is that if you're not in that habit, what happens is that people kind of invent the score. So if you don't give people the score, they kind of invent it in their heads. And so we've all been in workplaces where the score becomes who can stay the latest at night, or can you stay till 7 o'clock at night, or can you stay for more overtime? And that's an entirely invented score. And the reason that invented score exists is because the managers or the people creating the team or the work haven't said, well, actually what good looks like around here is these results. And so yeah, absolutely, feedback is it doesn't matter necessarily how you give people feedback or how exactly what it is, but what does matter is that you're giving it, and that feedback is sending the whole team towards the goals and the results that you really want to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. I was looking on the Rise Global website to have a look at obviously what the system does. Could you explain a little bit about it?
Yeah, so Rise. I developed Rise really for kind of the key thing that we wanted to do is to get people's attention. So if you're in a meeting, physical meeting, and we're having an interview or whatever, but we're sitting there, it's quite easy to get someone's attention. But in the world of remote work, and when you're competing with social media and email and all these other kind of attention grabbing apps, it's called the attention economy for a reason. They're all designed to grab your attention, and we've got things like Slack as well, which are just popping up all the time. The getting people's attention just to give them good feedback is in itself a job that you need to do as a manager. So you can't just assume that if I've created a spreadsheet with some numbers on, people are going to look at it. I can't just assume if I've created a nice business dashboard that my staff are going to look at it. I can't assume anything. So what Rise is really is sitting in the gap, is saying, how do I package this quantitative feedback, this simple feedback, into a story that then gets people's attention? And that's really what Rise is doing. We take the stats and we put them. What we've found is that actually, if you create a little leaderboard that doesn't have a prize necessarily, but you just create a leaderboard of Chris as ahead of Chris, or Toby, or whatever, Toby's below. That leaderboard is a story that gets people's attention, and then they want to drill down and say, has my score gone up this week or gone down this week, or has my rank gone up? And so those two little stories are actually a really great way of getting people's attention. And then once you've got the attention, then they're saying, okay, well, what does it mean? Oh, I've done badly this week. Okay, I must try and do better next week. Or I've done well this week. Great, I'll pop some champagne or go and sit with Chris Walkie on the top of the South Downs, or whatever it is. And so there's this kind of natural human kind of way of dealing with data, which is as stories. So what Rise is doing is it's turning that kind of basic metrics and data into very nice, pithy, friendly stories that grab people's attention.
Absolutely. I mean, you hear a lot of marketeers say that, I don't know if it's marketer or marketeer, but anyway, you hear a lot of them say, oh, like you said, the attention economy, and people's attention spans are getting shorter. I'm not sure that's exactly true when you consider how many of us can sit down and watch a Netflix box set in a day. You know, that's not a sign of attention missing. But what it is a sign of is how strong the human urge is to get involved with stories. So I think the fact that Rise is doing that is taking all these stats and things like that and actually creating a story around it and giving people a narrative that really, really helps engage people and motivate them, like we do when we're bored, you know, right? Easily finish a box set over Netflix in a day. Easy.
Yeah.
And lots of people are like that.
Exactly. And we're super, and the key to it is that the story's about you. So that's what makes it so interesting, is that suddenly there's this company or whoever it is, my manager, creating a little story once a week that's about me, and so that makes me interested, because we're all pretty narcissistic, aren't we? Narcissistic. So it's sort of this that's the sort of the secret sauce, if you like, is saying, well, what if I was writing a story, little mini story, they're not huge story, but a little mini story once a week, that about me, then that's immediately grabs my attention. And we see this work. I mean, what's so great is you don't have to be the criteria for the sort of people this works on is very broad. The key thing is that this has to be a story about something that they care about. So you can't just say, okay, we'll do number of Coke cans consumed last week or something. It can't be sort of something. It has to be relevant. So relevant. And the second thing is that you have to be a credible storyteller. So you can't be just completely random. Although we've seen, you know, I sat in a hackathon and created a one of these stories, Rise scorebooks for the UN. And so I created this sort of list of the UN, I called it the top 500 on social media, thinking that none of them would look at it. But because they're and this is the third criteria, they don't have many stories written about them, not about the UN agencies, but about the staff. Suddenly they all looked at it and were like, oh, where am I on Tobys leaderboard? How am I doing? And so a few months later, I'm suddenly sort of sitting in an interview with the sort of the ex-Prime Minister of New Zealand, sort of saying, oh, Toby, how do I go up on your leaderboard and all the rest of it? We're creating a story about her once a month, and she was interested, and so it really does work on, and it's really useful for people. It's not just it's because you're saying this is how you get better at this thing that you want to get better at. So it's a very kind of, I love stories, and I love the fact that we all find it helpful to have this sort of story as a way of making sense of our own data.
Definitely. I think that's so important. And I like the leaderboard idea. I mean, that seems to have been phased out in lots of areas of education where actually it's the participating that counts. But actually within a sales environment, that's super important to harbour and hone that slightly competitive edge, because it's what drives sales businesses forwards. It's that's
I think so. Passion. I mean, salespeople are used to it as well, so they don't mind it. I mean, salespeople get ranked and scored all the time, so they tend to be interestingly, they tend to be in the kind of bracket of people who have so many stories and scores about them. You have to kind of winnow it down and be really specific and careful. I mean, it's interesting about kind of league tables in schools and kids and all the rest of it. So I think that, the danger with any leaderboard is that it's not motivating. So what we know from leaderboard design is that people prefer being a big fish in a small pond than they do being a small fish in a big pond. So what we try and do is if you keep your leaderboards quite small, so it's only sort of 5 or 6 or 20 people or whatever. So there's always got to be a chance that that the person at number 20 could be at number 1. So I mean, the Premier League, the Football League, a great example. Leicester City can win the Premier League. They don't have to be, at the bottom for 100 years or whatever. So it is always possible, and I think so that still remains motivating. Where leaderboards fail is where people say either I don't want to be on the leaderboard because I'm not interested in this anyway, or they say I can never win it. And so there's this aspect of design that when you're putting together a program, you don't just shove it on there and expect it to work, because it's like any kind of tool. You have to design it right and use it in the right way, but it can motivate people.
I think it's absolutely brilliant. I used to work in an office where we used to get points assigned to us by the manager. It was completely arbitrary. There was no prize, and what would win you 1 point one day would lose you a point another day, because as I say, it was completely arbitrary and the manager was slightly mental. He's now my husband, so I'm allowed to say that. But it was amazing how, if actually you got to the end of the day and you had a point on the board, you'd feel really proud of yourself, even though it was nonsense, and we all knew it was nonsense. And the prize was unlike any prize that had ever been seen before, because it didn't exist. There was nothing. But so yeah, I completely understand that level of competition within that kind of environment can be really motivating, even when it's nonsense. There's an element to it that people just get on board with and enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And even in your example, I mean, even where the points are not being allocated in a sort of a standard way, that it still leads to a discussion about what is good and what is bad, and that's good for teams. Yeah,
it's so good for teams. It's so good for individuals. I mean, I was helping a client last week because she didn't have a plan for a day, for a week, and so no one in the team had a plan. So then, of course, when the market's tightening, which it is, it can be really difficult to keep motivating people, keep prospecting, because actually you should have been doing it 12 months ago. But because she didn't have a plan in place, nobody really had any goals or any ideas of what they were meant to be focusing on. And so we've constructed a day by day for an entire week plan. So then actually the team know what good looks like. They know how to get there. And I think also with using something like Rise, not only will the individuals be able to note where they're personally lacking, or they personally need to work on themselves, but actually from a manager's perspective, it's a really awesome way to identify holes within the whole training that actually you could plug that gap with, you know, you only need a trainer for half a day sometimes, and it just reinvigorates those neurons, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, you're right, and I mean, what you're talking about with this sort of everyone knowing what good looks like is so that's key, isn't it? I think one of the things that you know where I think that something like something like a rise is helpful in this communication part, and I think where we there are, and every project is the same that we've ever seen, is there's a lot of work. All the work for the manager is in what you've just described. You know, what does good look like? What are we going to give them? And I suppose where I come from, where I'm saying is that don't, you know, just if you've done all of that wonderful work, don't right at the end just sort of, I've seen places where they just stick a kind of a rubbish looking print out of a spreadsheet on the board, and it's like, well, you know, it's not a scrappy piece of paper. You know, at least format it properly. Put it, you know, if you're a digital company, do it digital. If you're going to be, you know, if you're serving it as a report, you know, print it out, make sure everyone sees it as a nice report. There's an element of not spoiling the ship for a pitch of tar, or whatever that old expression is. It's you as a, you know, I think one of the tools, I guess, of a manager, particularly in the digital world, is you've got to communicate in a good medium, and you've got to use the right tools so you're communicating well. And that's social media, that's internal social media, that's digital nowadays. And I think if we can help people, if we can help managers to do that, they will be able to encourage their teams, and everybody can kind of move forward together. And sometimes the old tools don't cut it, because they aren't designed for what we talked about earlier, that idea of giving you a particular story. I mean, if I look at my list of the metrics on a spreadsheet, I've got to look down, find my name, go across. It's all in small numbers. Whereas I much prefer it'd be just like, Toby, here you are. That's your dashboard. That's how you're doing. Right. Okay. And then I'm on.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. I've actually got an example of it here, so then people know what we're talking about. I'll just bring it up and do a screen share so then people can see just how clearly. So this is what you were talking about just now, Toby, is the individual Sherry Fawcett.
Yeah.
She can see clearly from that picture how she's doing, what went well, what didn't go well, and she can really identify from that how that's working for her, and then also how she features within the whole leaderboard
Exactly.
as a whole.
Exactly.
You know, I really like that. Like you say, it's nice and clear, nice and understandable.
Yeah, and the thing is that for exactly, and that, I mean, thank you for sharing that. But so and you don't have to use, I mean, you don't have to use Rise to have this technique. The technique is about simplifying the activity data into a simple story. And so actually, before, well, I suppose one of the things we could talk about, which might interest the audience, is what we've got there is what's called a single score, and that's a really kind of powerful way of getting people's attention. So too often, you know, in all the sales environments like the ones you described, that you're going to have 25 different metrics, and it's going to call prospecting, time to last call, you know, am I hitting my quota? There's all sorts. We can come up with hundreds of different sales activity metrics, and if you just sort of serve all of those at people, again, that's a sort of that's a turn off, isn't it?
Hugely overwhelming. Yeah.
Which one is important? What do you expect me to look at first? What am I? Yeah. How am I? I just want to know how am I doing. I don't want to know I don't want to know I don't want to have to work it out for myself, I guess, is the way of thinking. So what you're seeing in this image, I can't do my arrow to the right place, but seeing the image is the sales manager again has also done the work for Sherry and said, I've taken in all your metrics. In this case, I think in this one it was call prospects and emails sent, for example, and we've weighted them and we said this one's worth 30% of the score, this worth 40% of the score, and now here's your score, simple score, and that's going to go up or down. So she can look at that and say, right, my score's gone up, or in this case it's gone down, and then I'll think then it's the next step is, why has my score gone down? Okay, I'll go and look in, and then she sees the underlying metrics. So that single score is also a really kind of powerful way of creating something that gets attention and is simple enough to get to be worth looking at each week.
Exactly. I think simplifying it is almost having the door ajar, isn't it? So if you get all those metrics thrown at you straight away, you're overwhelmed, you're possibly not interested, and you just shut down. But having that overall score with that simple green arrow up, red arrow down is like peeking through, isn't it? Going, oh, what's happening? And then you're much more. Yeah, exactly. You're much more likely to want to push open the door and explore all the metrics that are inside, because you've had that hook. And we talk about hooks in marketing all the time for your TikTok and everything. Make sure that you're using the right hook. And I think that's a really great way of hooking people into their stats, because it can be a bit dry.
Yeah, no, you're right. And if you've look at Google Analytics. Google Analytics still doesn't do this, does it? You go onto Google Analytics, and a lot of us use it, especially for our website thing. And it's just, there's too many. You can slice and dice, and I think the digital industry is guilty of creating these overwhelmingly complicated dashboards that give us everything we could possibly want, but nothing that we need right now. And there's nothing that, as you say, I like that word, hook. They haven't designed it and said, okay, how do I design with an intention mindset? How do I hook someone in and then get them to look? You do want the stats. I don't, obviously we need
exactly.
Stats, but I'm not hooked on it unless I've got something that's really kind of it's really storified, so I'm really interested. And actually, to be fair to Google, I do get the occasional email saying you've gone up this month or you've gone down, but it's still a bit complicated.
Yeah, definitely. I think things like that are sort of designed by engineers for engineers, because if you've got that type of mind that's able to create something like that, then you would assume that everyone can think that way. But I think you're absolutely right about sort of drilling it down to almost, it's that lowest common denominator thing, isn't it? Make it really simple, and you're much more likely to broaden your appeal.
Yeah, no, it's right. I tell you, one of the funniest things about this industry, this is that what we found is that actually the thing that you were talking about, engineers and stuff, and actually it's the social element of it that is the real hook, the biggest hook. So the hook is here's your score, Toby, but the biggest hook is, where do you sit with people you see as your peers? And that, honestly, that's through taking back to that UN example. They were only interested because they saw the other prime ministers or whoever it was, I don't know, on the list, and am I ahead of the deputy secretary of whatever, and they're all, it's all just kind of, it's the social element, and they don't even care what the social element gets them first, and then they figure out what is the score, and then they figure out what generates the score. So it's fascinating how humans, we're so social, and we love seeing where we sit with our peers and our friends or colleagues, and so I think that's where that kind of that leaderboard view of showing the faces is so important. I want to see, I recognize Joe or Jane or whoever it is, and how come they're ahead of me? It's very natural, and it makes us lean in.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Well, Toby, thank you so much. How can people get in touch and find out more?
So obviously I've got a website, www.rise.global. I'm really happy to chat. My email is toby@rise.global. And if you've got an estate agency or group of estate agency, and you're interested in trying some of this technique or learning more about the technique, I'm really happy to share. And it's been great to spend this time with you. Thanks, Elle.
Thank you for coming. It's absolutely fascinating. I think using tech to motivate people is a really, really sensible use of it.
I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much, Toby. Great to meet you. And thank you for everyone who joined us.
Thanks for your time.
If you need anything else, rise.global. Thanks, Toby. Bye.
Bye-bye.